Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Phillies Talk Podcast for February 5th, 2023. Temperature is starting to rise again, and I'm joined again by my good friend, Matt Veazey. How are you, Matt?
Awesome. Rich, how are you?
Very good, very good. So we got a little taste of old man winter past couple days in the area, but we also had a preview of spring as the Phillies truck departed Citizens Bank Park for the warm shores of Clearwater.
Yeah, it's coming. Just 11 days until pitchers and catchers report. And I think it's 9 days, 2 days earlier for anybody who's it's going to be participating in the World Baseball Classic. So that's kind of unofficial. It's really 11 official days till the pitchers and catchers report. And then we got just 20 days, Rich. So it's less than 3 weeks, 3 weeks from yesterday. The first split squad games down in Clearwater. The Phillies have the Yankees coming in down there to Clearwater for the first game that the home fans will be able to get to see. And we're just 53 days away from opening day. So that's a little ways off still, but let's talk about spring training. 11 days from pitchers and catchers. So it's right around the corner.
Yeah, we're looking at less than 2 weeks now. It's a really exciting time. And as you said, we have the World Baseball Classic to look forward to. If you like those things, going on the other side of the world in Tokyo and I think Taiwan. And then in this neck of the woods, it'll be down in Florida with a finals going off scheduled for March 21st. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've followed most of them since they've been going on. They're good games. You know, the players have real, at least most of them. You know, some of these guys are playing for I mean, they may talk a good game, but when they're playing for like Team Israel or Team Germany or whatever, they don't have a chance to win really. And most of them are Americans playing for those countries. So it's when you get down to the real the big names though, the United States, uh, Japan, Mexico, the Dominican Republic, especially Venezuela, nations like that. They're really in it to win it, and there's a lot of national pride among those guys. So, when you start looking at the final, maybe maybe the top 4 or 5 teams, it's a really interesting tournament.
yeah, and a lot of, as you said, MLB players involved. Mike Piazza, I think, is managing the Italian squad
Yes, he
this
is.
year. And
Norristown zone.
yeah, some other players picking up with different teams from across the world. So it should be interesting to check that out. A lot of people were talking about they hope that the injuries don't happen to their favorite players that choose to participate in this, but that could happen anytime, really.
Sure. I guess that's always a concern, but you know, they're going to be, these guys are going to be playing ball. They're not most of these guys, probably everybody, Rich, these days. It's not like it was decades ago. These guys stay in great shape all year round. So it's not like most of them are even going to need to be, they're not going to need to be in physical shape. Most of them are going to need to be in quote game shape. They're not going to play competitive baseball games for a while. But with them reporting, um, just over a week from now, for the WBC guys will be reporting to their camps. They're going to have about, I would guess, would be about 3 weeks before the WBC games begin. That schedule, I think, opens up something like March 7th, March 8th. So it should be interesting. Somewhere around that second week of March, I think the WBC schedule opens up.
Yeah, I happen to have it up on the screen if you're watching the live stream of this, as we're doing it live here on Facebook on the Fighting Phillies blog page here. And as you see, yeah, Pool A is Chinese, Taipei, Netherlands, Cuba, Italy, and Panama, starting off March 8th in Taiwan. And then Pool B, Japan, Korea, Australia, China, and Czech Republic. They'll play in Tokyo, Japan, March 9th through the 13th. So Interesting. I wonder if that balloon will make an appearance over there in Pool B.
Which one? I think there were a couple balloons, weren't there, Rich? Rumors were a
Yeah.
couple balloons. I don't know, but
Yeah, it leads me to believe, something was going on, but, wasn't there a song about that? Fly Me Away, My Beautiful Balloon, something about that?
the 99 Luftballons. I don't know. There were
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
different balloon songs, I think, but
yes.
in any event, yeah, the Chinese are supposedly they'll have a team there in Pool B. I don't expect much of them, so that's definitely a Japan Pool B. Japan's a favorite to win it all, which they've done a couple times in the past. Korea's got a really good team, and don't sleep on the Australians. They play some. They're getting increasingly competitive on the world stage in Australia, but that should be a mostly Japan Korea action down there.
Yeah, and over in the US, it'll be played in Phoenix and Miami. Pool C, the USA, Mexico, Colombia, Canada, Great Britain. Then Pool D in Miami, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Israel, and Nicaragua. So,
Yeah, I didn't want to skip over that Pool A that you gave over for a second ago. Chinese Taipei, which is basically Taiwan. They'll have a good team. Cuba is always one of the top competitors. They'll probably be the top ones there. So Netherlands, they're sneaky sometimes because it's not just, when we think of the Netherlands, everybody thinks of snow and skiing and Julie Andrews spinning around, on the top of a mountain. But the Netherlands picks players from territories that are Netherland territories, so that you get some islanders there from the Caribbean islands. So the Netherlands is a sneaky club too, but I would expect Cuba out of Pool A, Japan out of Pool B over there, and they'll probably be semifinalists. And then you just mentioned Pool C. The U.S. is certainly a big favorite there, but Colombia and Mexico will have tough teams. Canada is always a little bit sneaky. I still think be an upset if the United States doesn't come out of Pool C. And Pool D is going to be just a killer. I mean, over there they got the Dominicans, who are a powerhouse, but they also have Venezuela and Puerto Rico are both really good teams, and those are kind of rivalries. Those three have going. Israel has some American players there. I don't really know a lot about Nicaragua, so my guess would be they're going to be the fifth place team in that division, but who knows? I don't know who's going to show up for them. So the Dominicans are certainly the favorites to come out of Pool D, with Puerto Rico and Venezuela having a possibility at shooting the upset there. So the big four, favorites that should come out of these are Cuba, Japan, the United States, and the Dominicans. And if those are the four semifinalists, there's going to be some great matchups. But you never know; it could be an upset in there somewhere, Rich.
that's for sure. We'll check it out when it starts happening here on the program. We'll be talking about it. But what we're talking about in the Philadelphia area, obviously, and Matt, you're wearing the cap to prove it. 1 week away from the biggest game on the planet, the Super Bowl, and the Eagles happen to be in it.
Fly Eagles fly. Yeah, this is you and I both. This is the fourth Super Bowl of our lifetime. They lost the last two, and then the first two, and then they won the last one. So we're looking to get back to 2-2 here in our Super Bowl appearances, which would be great. Second one in 5 years, and it's still so fresh in everyone's mind because it was so recent, that 2017-18 Super Bowl victory over the New England Patriots and the GOAT Tom Brady, who congratulations to Brady on an outstanding career. I mean, how much more can you say about Tom Brady? The best quarterback in the history of the National Football League. I don't know how many Super Bowls did he win? 7, 8, something like that. Multi-time Super Bowl MVP. You'd have a hard time arguing, that he's not the greatest quarterback in the history of football. So he just announced his retirement a few days ago. So congratulations to Brady. And it was nice to beat the GOAT in the Super Bowl so that we could get back to 1-1 in our Super Bowl matchups with the great Tom Brady. So glad we got that great victory in 5 years ago.
Yeah, what a victory it was. And
And this
Well,
one, Andy Reid, and that's going to be the big Andy Reid show. Probably the greatest head coach in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. Certainly the winningest head coach. Took them to what, 4 NFC championships and a Super Bowl appearance. So, and he's about to become the Chiefs' winningest all-time coach. Certainly a Hall of Famer, Andy Reid. So this is going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a great test for the Birds.
yeah, it will be. A story out of Vegas a couple days ago. Somebody went out there and put $1 million on the Eagle, 7-figure bet there to win 800,000. So the better at BetMGM there in Las Vegas ponied up $1 million to bet on the Eagles. So very interesting there. I think
That's
a
either
two and a
somebody
half.
a lot more wealthy than you and I, Rich, or somebody a lot dumber than you and I.
Yeah,
You
I'll
either got to
be
be pretty wealthy or you're really betting the ranch and the dog there.
I'll be on the sidelines for this.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to bet anything. Eagles started off 2.5 point favorites earlier in the week. They're down to 1.5 right now. The money line, as we just said, is minus 125 to win 100. So getting close to even money for them. But that would be a good wager if you're an Eagles fan, because you don't have to put up a whole lot to win 100. If they were big favorites, you'd have to put 300 up to win 100 or 400 to win 100. But this is evidently going to be a close matchup, according to Las Vegas odds makers.
I'm not a big bettor myself, Rich. As a little kid, I was a big Oakland Raiders fan. I loved Kenny Stabler and Madden, and that whole crew with Fred Biletnikoff and Dave Casper and Jim Otto. I mean, the whole early mid 1970s Raiders team. I really loved that team, and they went to the Super Bowl. I guess I was about maybe 13 years old, something like that. 14 years old. I was a paper boy delivering the Philadelphia Bulletin, and made a couple of bets with a couple of my buddies in the neighborhood who were Minnesota Vikings fans at the time, and won those bets. And I think I won like $50 as like a 13, 14-year-old in the mid 70s. I thought I was rich,
Yeah.
which is basically my entire, that's what I made in a week, delivering papers. So I thought I was going to be this great bettor, and it turned out that's probably the last bet that I actually ever won in my life. Sometime in my early 40s, I stopped betting. My streak of losing bets was so long, I was like, I'm retiring.
Yeah. I think they
I'll
call
play
that
Super Bowl block pools. That's about it.
Murphy's Law there. I think they call that. We just happen to be on the other side of Murphy's Law usually. But the Chiefs in their 3rd Super Bowl in the past 4 seasons. I didn't realize that till I just read it. Not big Chief fan, but they've certainly had a good run at being successful. And the Eagles, they pulled it together towards the end of the season, finished with one of the best records in the whole league, and really finished strong. So they can continue to play like they did in the last game. We may see a victory here in Philadelphia, but going to be
Well, a week
hard.
from today, Rich, a week from right now will be a game, an hour and a half away from game time. So it'll be a lot more exciting as the week moves along. But we still got a week to kind of chill out. But as the week goes on, it's going to build.
Yes, it will. Any score predictions that we can put down? We can write down, not for betting purposes, mind you.
I haven't looked at it enough to. Last year, 5 years ago when they were in, I predicted the score exactly correct for the Eagles.
Okay.
I think I predicted it to be a blowout. Whatever what was the final of that game? Something like, I don't know, 41 to 33, I think it was.
Something
and I
like
think
that, yeah.
the pregame I had predicted that the score was going to be 41 to 10. I was full of beer muscles, and thinking that the Eagles are going to blow them out. And, they looked pretty good for a while there, but, you can never count Brady out. And it turns out, he was in the game right to the last play. threw up that Hail Mary to Gronkowski right at the goal line, and that pass could have just as easily been caught as it was batted down into the end zone, as it kind of piddled around between like Gronkowski and like 3 or 4 Eagle defenders, dropped harmlessly to the ground. I was having a nightmare flash, when I saw the ball coming where it was, and Gronkowski down there looked like he was about a foot taller than all the Eagle defenders. I was like, oh, this cannot happen.
Yeah.
And then, if he would have caught that, they would have had that 2-point conversion. There's no way they would have not gotten that 2-point conversion after that. And then we're talking overtime, and anything can happen. So it was our day, and almost a nightmare there. I mean, they had Brady, fourth and long inside his own 10-yard line with something like 40 some seconds left in the game. I mean, it was over as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
And then he just almost pulls it out of his butt again, so, but, thank God we pulled it out. Great win for the Eagles, and we'll be looking forward to next week for sure.
I remember we did a cool podcast after that victory. If you remember that, not too long ago. It doesn't seem like 5 years ago,
It's
but
been 5 years now, Rich.
yeah, I remember doing that podcast. We were all, very jubilant about it, talking about it.
I had retired as a Philadelphia police officer just 2 weeks before the game, maybe 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks before the game, and I remember coming down my last few years on the job, because we all saw how wild and crazy different Philly sports championship parades and celebrations could be. I mean, I know you're a little bit younger than me, but I mean, I go back to the Flyers celebrations in the mid 70s. I mean, they were wild scenes, and I was just a 12, 13-year-old during those parades, but I remembered them well. And not just the parades, celebrations down where I lived in South Philly were just nuts. Streakers and all kinds of junk. But then the Phillies won, and you kind of got a more of a modern idea of what it was going to be like. So, knowing how crazy Eagles fans were and how we had never won a Super Bowl, and they were pretty good. They were pretty good teams a few times. And I just kept saying to myself, just please, God, don't let the Eagles win a Super Bowl until I retire. So I didn't want to have to go out there and work on the crazy Eagle fans, not so much so that, I didn't want people to enjoy themselves, but I'd rather just let them enjoy themselves and me be sitting at home watching it. And here, that's what happened. They won the Super Bowl finally 2.5 weeks after I retired. So I was very happy about that.
The Lord heard your prayers for sure on that.
Although, if Eagles fans think that, they might say, VZ, you should have retired like 10 years earlier. So.
Yeah. Super Bowl 57 kicks off from Glendale, Arizona. As you said, Matt, around 6:20 p.m., 1 week from the time we're doing this podcast. Going to be a great game. Big buildup. There's a 2-week buildup to this game. I always try to contrast and compare the Super Bowl with the World Series. They're totally different, but I think the Super Bowl really builds up a hype that the World Series sort of has a different hype about it, of course, because there's more games involved. But, maybe they need a little entertainment for the World Series sometimes, because you have the halftime show at the Super Bowl. It's sort of entertaining a little bit.
At least maybe, like for the opening game or the opening game in each home ballpark or something like that. But like you said, there are two different, scenarios, two different sports, two different scheduling setups. The NFL plays one game a week. It's an event. That's kind of what helps make it so big. It's kind of like a special event once a week, and everybody can plan and it's on a weekend. So everybody can kind of plan their schedule around it, or most people can. And the Super Bowl, you kind of understand why they, not just the build up over the 2-week period, but it also, there's so much surrounding the game that the logistics of getting it set up in the home city getting people to travel there. There's so much press coverage and media coverage, fans traveling from all over the place. So it makes sense to give them more time, and also it gives more time for players maybe to heal up a little bit more. It's a grind, the NFL. It's a long season. You got the hopefully two best teams, or teams that are playing the best at the end of the season, are participating in the Super Bowl. And that 2-week break gives them a chance to really, recover from some nagging injuries. It may not be a good thing there for the Eagles as far as the Kansas City quarterback goes, allowing him to recover from his injuries. But it's a different game. The World Series, it's kind of more about momentum. Because baseball's every day. So you have the playoffs are going on all through October, and there's just, for the teams that are advancing, there's a certain momentum that you don't want to take a week off in between. You want to just keep that momentum of for both teams rolling from the championship series into the World Series. So 2 different games, 2 different scheduling scenarios, but I understand what you're saying about entertainment buildup. I think MLB has been trying to incorporate elements like that, but just because of the type of event it is, and it's a 1-day, 1-shot deal, the Super Bowl, you're never going to get the same kind of, hype buildup for one event as you are for a best of 7 series.
That's for sure. Well, it's not only the bettors that are going to win some money if their team wins, the players are going to get some money, of course. And it was reported this week that the winning Super Bowl players from this game, Super Bowl 57, will get $157,000 each there out of this game. So something on the line for them to play as well. Of course, article that I'm reading here says Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, his contract is worth nearly $500 million. That's a drop in a bucket for him, but for some of those players, it'll be a nice little bonus. Losing team will bring home $82,000, according to sportscasting.com.
That's a big difference. It's almost half. So 157 grand to 82 grand. They're just getting to the Super Bowl. You're getting a nice little bonus, a nice little chunk of change. But the difference can buy you a new wing on your house or something. Buy you a new Range Rover. So
yeah. Not bad. So a lot on the line for that. And of course, as we said in the start of the show, this baseball talk podcast here anyway, the Phillies.
Is this a baseball talk? Right?
Yeah. We sashayed over to football for a little bit.
Well, it's understandable here in Philly, right? We get this once every 5 years now. So
yeah, that truck. I don't know if you saw the picture. I always look forward to seeing the picture of the semi pulling out. Here's a little bit of the items that were on that truck. And I took this out of an article from NBCsports.com. 10,000 cups, 2,400 baseballs, 2,000.
And when you say cups, you're talking about drinking cups.
Drinking cups.
Right, I was going to say, I hope they don't go through that many.
Not regular cup, sport cups.
Protective, yeah.
2,000 short and long sleeve shirts, 1,200 bats, 900 pairs of socks, 600 pairs of pants, 600 batting practice hats, 350 pairs of shorts, 300 batting gloves, on and on and on. So a long list of things they actually pack up and bring down with them there to Florida at spring training. So it's quite a lot of stuff.
It is. You need a lot of equipment. I mean, they're going to be down there for a month. That's a month of baseball down in the beautiful sun of Florida. And anybody who's ever been down there knows it's a fantastic experience to go down there. Great ballpark, great ballpark atmosphere. They got some good food there in the ballpark. Great drinking out there. So it's a good time to go down. If any fans are watching this or listening to this and have never been down, it's certainly worth planning a trip. Even if you just go down for 2 or 3 days, catch a couple of games. It's a great time. And like I said, my wife and I got down there finally back in 2011. It's the only time we've ever been down. And we had games for 4 days. Well, we were down there for 4 days. We had games for 3 days. We went to games the first 2 days. The second game was St. Patty's Day, so that was a great experience. And we ended up selling our last game or two because we'd already been to 2 games and the weather was so beautiful we wanted to hit the beach. So we saw 2 ball games and we went on the beach for a couple of days. And otherwise we hung out, went out drinking with our friends a couple of nights. So took one of those pirate ship cruises one night. So it was a really good time.
Yeah, I've been on that pirate ship cruise myself. Loved it. They still have it there, by the way. And it is a fun time. I went down. I figured I would go down in the year 2020 rather. So I go down and I'm
Make it, Rich.
I'm halfway down there listening to MLB radio all the way down on Sirius. And of course, that was the year that they called spring training. They canceled it. So I'm there and somewhere around South Carolina, and okay, the camps are closed, was the announcement. And I had my reservations anyway, so I went on with my plans. But of course, when I get down there, no spring training, only locked gates in Clearwater at the Phillies camp. I did get to go into the gift shop at the Yankee Stadium, but that was about it. So
I remember you posting some of those pictures. What a crazy time. Thank God we're past all that.
Yeah. Yep. So as you said, Matt, it's going to be a great time down there in spring training. I'm thinking of going again, but I've been doing some preliminary pricing on it, and those the lodging down there is just outrageous now. So I'll have to take a second or third look at it, see if maybe I can rearrange the week that I was going to go or something like that, possibly. But yeah, good time will be had by all down there for sure.
Yep, you're going to see another good thing about spring training too. If you're a real fan of the team and you like to see some of the younger players, if you can get down there, I always like to try to plan when we went. I like to plan to go for that St. Patty's week because I just like the atmosphere of that St. Patty's game. But if you can get down there early in the first 10 days, 2 weeks of camp in the spring training Grapefruit League games, you have a great chance of seeing some of these younger players and prospects who are getting down there and who have been invited as non-roster invitees. And for the Phillies this year, that would include those big 3 pitching prospects of Griff McGarry, McGable, and especially Andrew Painter. They all got non-roster invites to spring training, as well as some names that people will know, like Scott Kingery, for instance. Sam Coonrod, I think he just got DFA'd, but he may be coming back as a non-roster invitee. So Scott Kingery is a guy who actually has a chance to make it this year out of spring training, make the roster if he has a good spring. And it'll be his kind of last shot, Kingery. He's going to be, not that he'll be a free agent after this season. He technically, there's a club option on his contract, but they're not going to pick that up, Rich. So this is the last chance probably that anybody's going to get to see Scott Kingery in a Phillies uniform. And he certainly is trade bait at any point at this time as well. So maybe people who like him, I know there's still a few of them out there. Certainly I and most people would be rooting for him to finally put it all together. But last chance to see Kingery, and as well as maybe a first chance to see some of these hotshot young pitching prospects.
Yeah, sounds great. Love to get down there. So maybe in a month or so or less, we'll be able to talk from down there, and we'll do a show, stream it live here on wherever you're watching us from, Facebook, or if you subscribe to the show on our podcast platforms all over YouTube, Apple Music, Google Podcast. We'll have some color commentary from there, hopefully. So look forward to that. And of course, we have some more big news to report. And this is kind of old news right now, but we have an ex-Philly that made it into the Hall of Fame.
Yes, we did. Scott Rolen, third baseman, one of my favorite players from back in the day. In that period, but in that lull period, I like to say, where between like those great '80s teams, late '70s, mid late '70s and early '80s teams, and then the kind of the twilight of Schmidt's career, where they tried to contend, and a couple of times they got close, but never could really push it through. And then once that all broke down from the say the late '80s through the very early 2000s, maybe around 2001. So we're talking about a good 15-year stretch, Rich, where we lived through it. There was really only one team, and that was the 1993 kind of miracle team. That's why kind of everybody loves those guys. There was nothing in there except for a few really great gems of individual play. And one of those was Scott Rolen. We got to see him break in here. We got to see him become a Rookie of the Year here, win his first few Gold Gloves here, make his first All-Star team here. So over the time that he was here, Rolen was it was so obvious that he was a fantastic player. Of course, you don't know when a guy's playing his first 4 or 5 years that he's necessarily going to be a Hall of Famer, unless it's maybe somebody like Mike Trout or Ken Griffey Jr. Roland's the kind of guy who his value, built over the course of a long career. Jaffe's WAR system, the JAWS system that's used out of Baseball Reference, measured Scott Rolen as the 10th best third baseman in the history of the game. And of the 9 players who rank ahead of Scott Rolen as third baseman, 8 of them were already in the Hall of Fame. The only one who wasn't was Adrian Beltre, who wasn't eligible. Beltre will be eligible next year, and he'll get in. He'll probably be a first ballot Hall of Famer, or certainly within the first couple of ballots. So now Roland, behind him, Edgar Martinez is 11th. Frank Home Run Baker is 13th. So Roland was the only one of the top 10 who was eligible who wasn't already in the Hall of Fame. No, that's been taken care of now. So I'm very supportive of, always was. Back in December, I wrote an article supporting Roland's Hall of Fame candidacy at my mattvz.com website. Not the first time I've vocally supported Rolen. I've been voting for him in the IBWAA vote every year. So I'm a happy boy that Rolen finally got in. I believe he's completely deserving, and like you said, now we got another Philly in the Hall of Fame, and we very well may get another Philly in the Hall of Fame next year. Another one who some of the vocal radio, critic fans don't like, in Billy Wagner. So very, very good chance he's building closer. I believe he was Wagner was in the upper 60s, I believe, this year. So anybody who pretty much gets to that level has a great chance to push past, and he still has a couple of years left on the ballot. So I would expect not only do we have Scott Rolen now who will go in, but we'll have Billy Wagner going in maybe next year, within the next couple of years. And we got some other guys who are going to be of interest. Jimmy Rollins is kicking around near the bottom of that ballot, but he's staying eligible. Would not surprise me at all, Rich, if you saw J-Roll have the same type of a rise through the voting that you saw Scott Rolen have over the next, say, 5 years. J-Roll is a guy who, very similar to Rolen, you can make a really strong argument for his deservedness. And the all-time hits leader for a 130-year-old franchise now, 140-year-old franchise. So he's, I can make the argument easily, and I will make it at some point, in writing. It's not really the time yet. I think when he starts building some more support, we'll start getting it more active, pushing J-Roll. And you're going to have Chase. Chase Utley next year. And there's already been discussion about Chase's worthiness. Another guy who you can make a real argument for his worthiness for the Hall of Fame. Best second baseman in baseball over a half dozen year stretch. They're from the mid 2000s through the early 2010s. So it's going to be very interesting to see. We have Rolen in, we'll get Billy Wagner in. We have J Roll, and we have Chase coming up, who will be, I think, rising. Both of them neither one will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, obviously, but they'll rise over the course of the 2020s. And then we're going to have Dick Allen again, who's going to come around on another veterans committee in a couple of years. So as far as the Hall of Fame goes, we do have some interesting Phillies developments, I think, that'll be coming about, and we already have one.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a plus for the Phillies fans and that era. Love the player. It's awesome. So congratulations to Scott Rolen.
You know what else I'm going to be interested in, Rich, is that we haven't heard anything about the Wall of Fame this year, the Phillies Wall of Fame. And I have been really vocal in writing and on the Phillies Bell feed, and to anybody who will listen, that I really think that they need to get Dan Baker on the Wall of Fame. This is over a half century that this man's voice has been heard by every Phillies fan who's gone to a ball game. Any Phillies fan who ever went to a ball game at Veterans Stadium or at Citizens Bank Park has heard Dan Baker announcing the lineups, anything that can come over the public address system. So Dan Baker he's been the master of ceremonies at most of these Wall of Fame ceremonies. He deserves his own plaque, in my opinion. So I don't know who they're planning on putting in this year, or if they have anybody. At some point, they're going to start putting these 2008 guys in, well deservedly. They got a parade of them who are going to be going in at some point. Yep. But I really would like to see them get Dan Baker in the Wall of Fame.
Very cool. That would be a great honor. And yeah, you just can't imagine a time when there won't be a Dan Baker at the stadium. But yeah, he's put in a good career there. Awesome. So glad to hear his voice, and can't wait for opening day. Speaking of opening day, and before opening day, the Phillies just announced, or the NBC Sports rather, just announced that they're going to pick up 13 games in spring training. It sounds like a lot of games this year, including the March 17th game against Toronto. That's the St. Patrick's Day game. That's the day that I plan to want to be down there in Clearwater, but it seems to be such a busy time. Everything's sold out. So I might rearrange my plan, but that one's going to be a broadcast. And if you're watching our video feed here, as we're taping the show, you can see the other games, the Yankees towards the end of February.
Yeah, they're grabbing those first couple of games there. If I say February 25th and 26th against Minnesota, those are the first two home games in Clearwater. So that's good. That's good to see.
Yeah.
Less than 3 weeks away, Rich.
Yeah,
3 weeks away. 3 weeks from now, we'll be watching Phillies baseball.
We're going to be watching baseball, living large. What a great time it will be. And checking out the rest of the spring training schedule here. It's pretty full. Not sure if you can see that schedule, Matt.
Yeah, just a couple of days off. Yeah.
Yeah, just traveling down to the Blue Jays on the 5th, at the Orioles on the 6th of March, and then 3 home games in a row. That would be a good time to go there for me, I think. And
when are you talking about? When are you thinking about?
Well, right now I was thinking the 7th, 9th, and 10th is 3 home games, right, sort of right in the middle.
And you got a beach day in between there, Rich. The 8th, you go to the beach.
Yeah, an off day built into the middle of that. So, let's see what plans can be made. But Philly spring training right around the corner. I'm very excited. This podcast has a new host. I just put us over onto a new host today. So for most of you, you won't know any different. But we're over at Libsyn now, Libsyn Podcasting. So they're one of the biggest podcast hosts on the planet. They're going to help distribute this show a little bit more. And I think we're going to be more popular this year, Matt. And because, with the World Series and all the Phillies were in, it's got some spin to it. So why don't you tell the listeners where they can find you? I got my ham about ready to go on. In fact, tell them where you're going to be found online, and I'm going to run over and put my ham in. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, while Rich is taking care of his ham, I'll be a little bit of a ham here and tell everybody you find me. The best place to find me is at Phillies Bell, just like the bell that you see here in the background there at Citizens Bank Park. Whenever you go to the games, Phillies Bell. So go to at Phillies Bell on Twitter. That's the best place to find me. It's really I wouldn't say it's the only place, but you can also visit my website, which is mattvc.com, MATTVEASEY, mattvc.com. You're going to have to put up with some non-baseball stuff from time to time there, but it's mostly always baseball stuff or sports related. I am going to be writing something about the Eagles in the next couple of days. I have a Super Bowl kind of related piece coming out later in the week on Deion Sanders. That's going to be a part of the IBWAA daily newsletter. So, those things you can be looking forward to coming up in the mattvz.com website. But the best place is always for Phillies every single day. You're going to get great Phillies history, news, opinion, information, retweets, articles, whatever we can put on there. At Phillies Bell on Twitter. And Rich is back. You got the ham in, I see.
Yep. I placed the ham into the oven. Got some guests coming. They just told me when they'll be arriving. So, the ham had to go in.
What are you having with that ham, Rich?
We're going to go, well, I don't eat them, but mashed potatoes.
I love mashed potatoes.
A little yams.
Make sure the mashed potatoes are nice and creamy, fluffy, creamy.
A little gravy on those mashed. Of course, I don't eat it, though. I'm going to have some air fried asparagus and a salad. What else are we having?
How come I wasn't invited? I love all this stuff.
Some biscuits, which again, I don't eat the biscuits, but my guests will love them. And, maybe
sounds
a beer
great.
or two. Maybe a beer
That
or
all
two.
sounds great.
Wash it down. So
it's a party. It's a party at Rich's place.
Yep. It'll be a nice party for sure. And check out the rest of my website at fightingphillies.com. And you can also go to baseballtalkradio.com for a collection of all the best independent and otherwise talk shows about baseball. That's baseballtalkradio.com. And I'll put a plug in for my good friend Gary Mack over at Mets Musings. He's got a great podcast. He can be found at metsmusings.com. And of course, we do a show called Baseball Talk Radio show podcast. So Google those things. Go over to the website, check it out. Check Matt out over at Twitter at Phillies Bell. At Fighting Phillies on Twitter. Give us a follow. Always plenty of good things to read on Matt's feed. Sometimes on my feed, not always, but check it out. So thanks for listening to this edition of Phillies Talk. Any final comments, Matt?
Go to at Phillies Bell on Twitter and go Birds.
Absolutely.
Fly Eagles fly.
Let's see a Super Bowl victory. Thanks for watching and listening to this edition of Phillies Talk Podcast, everyone.